All right, man, I'm so excited. I mean, our guests just continue to get better and better. And we have somebody really special here. I met Dr. Rob Ritter a few years ago, actually. I think we did a short podcast together from what I remember. And I've been excited to try to get him back on the show. So it's very nice to have him here. Dr. Ritter, welcome.
It's great to be back with you. I'm glad that you reached out to me and get to spend some time together. Yeah, that was, God, it's got to be at least 4 or 5 years ago, I would think.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute, as they say, right? Yeah, I'm looking forward to spending some time with you and trying to share some information and, try to help get better outcomes for patients and for dentists.
Yeah, I think everybody's heard about the protocol, and I want to dive into what the curriculum in the protocol is, a 2-day program. But before we do that, I'm intrigued by, our profession is very difficult for us type A leaders, dentists, doctors, whatever term you want to use, to actually get along with somebody else and together lead. And you and Dr. Ramsay have been partners now for 24 years. Tell me how this has come about. How do you guys tell me first, let's start here. How did you meet and how did you get into this partnership? And maybe that's a good starting point.
It's a great starting point. So on the front end of it, I'll make it as short as I can. I was a owner of a practice and I had an associate with me who really wasn't doing the same type of dentistry I was doing and really didn't share the vision that I had. And it was a little bit of a difficult situation because he was my age, but hadn't had the education that I had taken up to that point and was going for. And we were offering 2 levels of dentistry in the practice, which really wasn't good for the practice. And so I basically told him, you're not going to become a partner here in the practice. And he decided to, and rightly so, move back up north to be practice with his best friend, which I thought was great for him. At the same time, I was introduced to my partner, Chris Ramsay, by a mutual friend who said, look, this is a young guy that's right out of school, but he's really hungry to learn. He's from the area. And I met him and we became fast friends. And right when my associate left, I literally picked up the phone and said, dude, I need to talk to you. And I went over to his condo. He just had a baby. I mean, maybe the baby was, I don't know, 8 weeks old. And I said, listen, my associate's leaving. I'd love for you to come into my practice. That was on a Thursday night. And by the next Tuesday, he was my associate.
Wow.
And so he was my associate for a couple of years, 3 years, something like that. And then what happened was we decided to move the practice to an area that was rapidly growing where we could own the condo space as opposed to renting where the office was. I had purchased a practice probably 4 or 5 years before he became my associate. And so we built out a brand new office space about 3.5 miles away from the existing office, brand new space, 4,200 square feet. And we shared the cost and we said, okay, we're 50-50 partners in this, brother. Let's do it. And the most important part about our journey, when I really think about it, was that we had the shared vision of what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it, how we wanted to be perceived, the longevity factor, known for the highest quality in our town, setting ourselves apart to be the dentist in town, not another dentist in town. We shared everything 50-50%. I'll get into that in a moment. And most importantly, we trained together. So we went through the SPEAR continuum when Frank was doing this out of hotels. And then when we finished that, somebody told me about COIS, and so we took the COIS curriculum together. Now, here's what's really interesting about this. We would take off the time and fly out to Seattle from Florida, which you can't get any further away in the continental United States unless you flew from San Diego to Bangor, Maine, right? Yeah. So we fly out there together and we sit next to each other doing all the courses together. So we're learning and we're inputting the information and saying to ourselves, well, this is going to work and let's modify this and this is how we're going to do things back in practice. And so right away, somebody would say, oh my gosh, how'd you leave your practice for those amount of days? Who was in the practice? How are you generating income? Oh my gosh, who was checking hygiene? Oh my gosh, you're taking off 5 days during the month. How can you make up that production? Well, let me tell you, at the end of the year, the numbers grew, not shrank. because when we came back, we were more confident, we had more information, we had different ways to approach these cases, and most importantly, had we each other to run things off of when we were looking at the cases. So taking the education together was an invaluable part of this. Second part was the 50-50 thing. If I said to him, hey, Ramsay, I want to use this ceramist, and that ceramist was costing me $50 more, $75 more a unit than what he was paying. I said, look, dude, I want to use a ceramist for a couple of cases, see what he can do. I've got a lecture or two coming up, quite honestly, and that's the dirty secrets that nobody ever tells you. You know, I'm full of them. Give them away for free. And he goes, sure, do it. And so even though my lab bill at the end of the year might have been more than his, we split everything 50-50. If I used 10 more gauze than him, we weren't counting gauze. If I used more adhesive than him, or he was using more adhesive and more impression material back in the day, we didn't give a shit. We didn't care. It was not about that. It was not about nickel and diming each other. Partnerships, as you know, come down to two things why they fail. Two reasons why they fail. Number one reason is money. It's money. The second reason is ego. And I can tell you, I know people, because I've been in the game now a long time. There are people who will never have a partner because their ego would never allow them to share the stage with somebody else.
You know, that last sentence is probably one of the reasons why we can't get along to form group practices and create this private environment that would at least compete with DSO. And I don't want to get into that conversation, but that just kind of came to my head as you were saying that. It's tough for us to get along, isn't it?
But
It's
we all come
hard.
from, right? We come from different backgrounds with different needs, wants, and desires. A lot of us are
Yeah.
trained differently with a
Yeah.
different perspective. And so it is difficult. That's why I think when you take education together, that's where you can take these disparate parts and kind of put them together and find that path forward. It's still not easy. You know what I
Yeah.
call it? I call it a sexless marriage. That's what partnership is, right? It's
Yeah.
a sexless marriage.
That's
And
right.
so I think, you know, if you take the long view, and my thing is always, I never take the short view on things. I just don't. I don't think in short. I think in long. When I do investments, I think, where am I going to be 5, 7, 10 years from now? When I purchase something, I amortize that out over 5, 10, whatever years. And so if the cost is high, I said, well, if I've got this for 10 years, I amortize it out over 10 years. It's worth it. It's not
Yeah.
costing me that much per year, but the quality supersedes me getting into it faster with less money. That's how I look at things.
Yeah, no, it's I think one of the things that you're stressing, you've said this now 2, 3 times, that's really important to understand is there are a lot of partners that say, "Hey, I got the office covered. Go take the course." And, you know, I'll go take this course, you get the office covered. And so there is that misalignment of, you know, you go and take all these courses and your partner has no idea what happened. He goes and takes, or she goes and takes all these courses and you have no idea what's happened. I think that's really wise words in doing it all together. And like you said, close that office, man. It's okay. You got time to regain that production. But yeah, that alignment I think is really important. That philosophically, you know, having that match. Now you said something, and I certainly know the two of you. I've obviously watched you for a few years. In these 24 years, you've both changed, you've both pivoted, and you've both advanced. Right? How does that happen? I mean, do you guys have like weekly meetings, monthly meetings? Is there a moment where you sit down and meditate together? I mean, what's happening internally on the communication front lines,
Uh,
if anything?
Change is inevitable, growth is optional. And so we sit down and we say, where do we want to be and how are we going to get there? And then, you know, having mentors along the way is something else we can talk about, having mentors. And one of the big things about mentors is just because you have one mentor doesn't mean that you're going to stay with that mentor all the way through. You might pivot, like you said, pick up another mentor to help you along the way, and that's okay. It's like a professional golfer. They might start off with one caddy or one hitting instructor, and they might pivot to somebody a couple years later, and that's okay. But communication and understanding that you can't always win also, right? It's not about winning either. You're not always going to get your way. And so you have to say to yourself, is this a big thing that I'm going to, die on this hill? Or am I just going to let this go? Because when something happens that I really want, I've got to make sure that he understands this is something I want. When it comes to money in the practice, whenever something was less than probably even $1,000, I would never ask if I'm going to ask him if I was going to get it. I'd just tell him, hey, listen, I really want this, like these 2 soft boxes to put, either in a photo studio or these new soft boxes that go on a DuPont flash. He's like, cool. But if it was time to, we in Florida, you can't live without air conditioning. And I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, he's like, dude, the air conditioner is, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 years ago. He's like, the air conditioner is like 20 years old. We've had it serviced. That's why it's lasted long, but we really need to replace it. And I go, okay, well, how much is that? And, it's a lot of money. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's just get it fixed. You can't work without electricity. You can't work without it. So I said, okay, you just got to pick your spots, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And as long as you both have the understanding and the willingness to drop your ego and say, he might know more about this than me, then you've got a great partner for the future. And Ramsay would tell you that I deal with things in the practice behind the scenes. Internet, websites, social media, I was dealing with equipment, materials, that sort of thing. I was good at that. He'd deal with everything in front of the office. He would deal with, the way the office looks, the rebuild of the office, because it was redone by his wife, did a beautiful job, made it look Palm Beach bougie. It's really a beautiful looking office that doesn't look like any other dental office. And get out of either way. You say, okay, you deal with this. That's your thing. Fine. Let's go with it. Boom. And if you can do that, which at times it's difficult.
Sure.
At times it's difficult for just, it's not that it's difficult. Let me reuse the words. Let me change that. I would say you have to take a moment and take a deep breath and say, wow, this is maybe not something I would normally do myself. However, the other party thinks it's in our best interest to do it. Go with it and just move forward. Just move forward.
That word ego comes in this
Oh
conversation
yeah,
a
it's a
lot, right?
big, it's a
It's
big, it's a huge part. It's a
yeah,
huge part of our profession,
yeah,
right? Especially on the things that we do. When you're out there, either lecturing, you have your own teaching institute, even in your own practice, in your own area, practices are different. They have different reputations. They have not just longevity, but the perception of the public is critical. And so all of those things play into this whole greater, what we call the entity. And we like to say that the entity is bigger than both Ritter and Ramsay. Now, the entity then flows down to Ritter and Ramsay, and we both have our own teaching styles. We have our own teaching abilities. We both do different lectures outside of the protocol. And yet we come together for the protocol 4 times a year. And the combined knowledge of now, what is it, 57 years together, combined education is really one of the bright spots for the people attending because they're getting 2 different perspectives, but still gleaned in a way that it's a coherent message.
I'm going to have Dr. Ramsay on in a few weeks on the live show. And I can tell you just from talking to you right now in this short conversation that I'm sure you're both going to agree that alone you would not have accomplished what you've accomplished together. So, if there's any win in that concept of should I go through this journey myself or get along with the partner and, have these ego discussions and money discussions and I can progress a lot farther in my profession. And I think there are some doctors that are probably 15, 20 years in wondering, if I had a partner or if I would have stayed with the partner, how things would have turned out.
It's an interesting point. I know that when I was a solo practitioner, I had these huge goals of what I wanted to do, and I was doing them. But I got to tell you, at the same time, and nobody would say this, it was rolling that boulder up a hill. I mean, it was a heavy lift. And back then, this is back in the mid '90s. It's before I had my daughter, so I had no children. I was married. My wife's a dentist in the practice, But I was doing almost everything by myself.
Yeah.
And I was in an environment, quite honestly, in town where it was not an accepting environment. I wouldn't say I was welcomed with open arms because I came in with a very clear understanding of what I wanted to do with a purpose. I was purposeful, and I caught a lot of arrows in the back because I didn't want to be like every other dentist in town. And if I'm just going to say it now, I don't care. Most of them are retired. It threatened them. Here's this young guy with an energy, a passion, a direction. He knew what he wanted to do. He's like, who does this guy think he is? Well,
Yeah.
this guy was the guy that took more education than you, that decided to offer up services that maybe you weren't comfortable providing, and a much higher level, working with better laboratories to produce a better outcome. I put myself out there. I said, okay, let's go for it. And back then, I just tell people the truth. There's nothing to hide.
Sure.
I was doing one veneer case a week. And back in the mid to late 90s, that's a lot, brother. That was a lot. I was doing one a week. I was prepping one in the morning and seating one in the afternoon, one a week. That was a lot. And let me tell you, I caught a lot of grief for it from the local dentist, but I didn't care because I'm not working for them. And by the way, they didn't give a damn whether I succeeded or I failed.
Yeah.
So I don't care about them either. Back then, it was survival mode. I had to do this because I had big note payments. I had just started out. I was in debt, both from the practice and dental school. I had to do what you got to do. I didn't do anything unethical. I did everything I possibly could and did at the highest level. I sought out the best ceramists to work with so I'd get the best results. And quite honestly, those cases are still in the patient's mouths 25, 30 years later that are still being checked in hygiene. So I did something right.
You know, you basically made a decision, and you made a decision and you were intentional about the decision and you executed on the decision. The problem many times, as I've talked to hundreds of doctors, is they don't make a decision. And when they make a decision, they make that decision until it gets hard. And then they change their mind and they go a different path. And I think that's really important to understand that, you know, it's fair to say you've went through some hard times with the decision that you made, and you stuck with the decision because you had confidence in that decision. So there's a soft decision and then there's a hard decision, right? I think many doctor, owner, dentists make soft decisions, and they don't take a deep dive. And I think that's really what from what I'm gathering, you said, no matter who's in my way, I'm going to do what I want to do because at the end, I got to be happy with the journey I'm going through.
That's correct. And I did
think
what I wanted to do. And it's not just, let me be clear. I took over a practice that was a very traditional drill, amalgam, fill, PFM crown practice. I took that practice over. It was a lot of dentistry that needed to be done that was not diagnosed because the dentist wanted to be their friend and not tell them the truth. I had attrition problems in the practice with patients. I had a situation where I had team members that were revolting against me because I was changing the business systems in the practice. Here's the truth. You got to understand, they weren't the one that took out the note for the practice. They weren't the ones, the team members that went through college and went through dental school and didn't have any money. And then they're telling me what they want the practice to be. No. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. I call it a benevolent dictatorship. It's not a democracy. Okay. I don't like when dentists tell me, well, I can't do that in the practice. My team members don't like it. Wrong answer. The answer is you need to find team members who will support you, who will modify what's going on to go ahead and get on track with what you're looking to do and what you're looking to accomplish. And one of the biggest lessons I learned early on, and I didn't learn it, it's not that I didn't learn it as I didn't believe it at first, was even though somebody is quite competent at their job, if they don't support you and they're not willing to make the changes necessary to get you to where you want to go, and by the way, it's a journey, not a destination, you need to get rid of the poison as quickly as you can in your practice. Yeah. And I know what people say, oh, it's a different environment now, hiring people, whether it be clinical assistants or hygienists, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter the time. You know, you got to find them, train a personality. You know, you can't train a personality. You find a personality and you give them the skills necessary, whatever that is. One of the employees in the practice was working as a waitress in one of the local restaurants. Great personality. We hired her. We trained her. We sent her to get expanded duties functions and X-ray certification, and she's phenomenal. She didn't come from dentistry, and in fact, the best long-term employees I have, whether they be clinical assistants, admin in the front, or even hygienists we pluck out of the hygiene school, I don't want them to come in working from another office, because I don't give a shit what they learned in the other office. It's not the way we do things in our office. It's not, and I'm not interested. I don't even want them to tell me, well, in my old office, I don't care what you did in your old office. You're not there. You're in my office, and let me tell you what works in my office. This is how we're going to do things. We had to rewire a lot of the hygienists from what they came out of their hygiene school brain damage that they're taught. Remember, they're taught that they don't work for the dentist, they work with the dentist. And so we had to rewire them and reprogram them of what we want them to accomplish for our patients, train up our team members, give them the education, get any sort of skill set that they need, and not just here in the office, but outside of the office. I want them to become better people. And when they're happy and doing the things that they want to do and earning the income they want to earn, all of a sudden you've got a cohesive unit firing on all 8 cylinders. It's a difference maker in your practice, and your patients pick up on it. They know when it's a good environment to come into your office or not.
You know, accountability as a leader is so important. And I mean, just listening to you here, there's a distinction between leadership and being a dentist working in a business. And accountability is important. And so if you have clarity and you hold yourself to a higher standard and hold yourself accountable, then you're going to end up being the leader that people are going to follow instead of people coming to your business for a paycheck. I genuinely believe that. And I think this is, you know, doctors always are concerned about so many things that don't matter, and they clutter themselves with noise that just doesn't matter. And that noise creates that negative energy for them that takes them away from what actually matters. And so in these 20 minutes, you've now said 3 things that are so important. 1, money. 2, ego. 3, talking about how you form a team based on your leadership, as opposed to just hiring another body. Train your team. Don't just throw them in based around your personality, your vision, your strategies. Yes, Rob.
Have you heard you inform, you don't perform, you train, you don't complain?
Yeah.
Let's use, okay, one of my favorite examples in my presentations are Chick-fil-A. We know that Chick-fil-A now is more popular than McDonald's, it's more popular than Burger King, more popular than Wendy's. And you say, well, why is it? I mean, it's almost like they put crack in the chicken for the kids. The kids just can't eat enough chicken. They love going there. But as an adult, you realize that nobody that gets on that floor for Chick-fil-A is not ready to be on that floor. What do? They know they've got these kids from 15 to 18 years old, and they've got them all the way through high school until they leave for college, right? Or maybe some of them work there during college, but the majority of them, if you look at them, their age range is somewhere between 15 and 18 years old. Okay. And they give them one of the greatest gifts that they don't realize at the time, which is accountability and training, skills with the public, dealing with the service industry, which is what, in a sense, dentistry is as well. Of course, there's care, skill, and knowledge that goes with it. However, you're dealing with the public. I wish somebody would do a program on the success level of these young people who have worked at Chick-fil-A for a year or two, and what they've, after they go through college, and what they've become. Because my guess would be that the majority of them are successes, who are working, who understand work, who understand value, who understand time management, who understand basic people skills, as well as just being in the moment, right? If you use that as the example, if they don't put an 18-year-old to serve chicken on the floor, how can you possibly have a clinical assistant or an admin person talking to somebody about a $20,000 smile design case, or no prep veneers, or a full mouth reconstruction, or whatever it is, implants all on X, whatever it is, when they have no idea what they're talking about? They don't have a value system. You haven't supported them. You haven't trained them. You have nowhere to look but yourself. We like to say it all starts at the top. You're going to blame somebody, you got to blame yourself first. You can't blame them. If somebody says something on the phone that's not correct, it's not their fault. It's your fault for not training them. You know, we're not allowed to give in our office any fees over the phone. Absolutely no fees. Now, if you didn't tell your team members that, how are they supposed to know? If somebody calls them and says, how much is a veneer? How much is a crown? And they go, oh, well, our fee for that is, $2 million. If you told them you never quote a fee over the phone, never, you've trained them to know. And then the patient says, well, I'd really like to know. So why don't you come in and have a consult with Dr. Ritter or Dr. Ramsay? There's no charge on our consults. And we can determine whether that's the best treatment for you or not. I mean, you train them. And if you want to make sure of that, you have a system like we have Weave, where you can record the incoming phone calls and then you can review them at the end of the day, the end of the week, end of the month. And then sit down with that team member and say, let's go ahead and listen to the way that you're answering the phones and let's modify that. Right? That's how these things are done. And unfortunately, my other line is everybody wants a shortcut to greatness. Everybody wants that ultra high functioning team with the highest fees in town doing the best dentistry. Do you think you're going to snap your fingers and it's going to happen in the next week? The answer is no. No. You need a solid, firm foundation. Here in Florida, everything's got to be built with rebar and concrete. Otherwise, it's not going to withstand a hurricane. And that's what comes through your office are hurricanes. You got to be ready for those things. You have to train everybody. You have to support them. And never, ever, last thing, don't throw your team under the bus in front of a patient. We have a hard, fast rule. No patient gets one up on our team members. Absolutely not. We have an office manager that's been there for 28 years. When the patient comes in and says, well, she wasn't nice to me on the phone, you know what we say? We go, well, were you? Were you nice to them on the phone? Yeah. And they're like, what? And I go, let me tell you, she's been working for us for 28 years. She knows everything about this practice, and I've never heard her raise a voice one time to somebody. So when you tell me that she was upset with you on the phone, I don't buy it. And people go, oh, how can you say that to a patient? You know why? Because it's easier for me to find a new patient than it is for me to find a new operations manager, office manager. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, and I know the young dentists are listening to this going, yeah, but.
There's no yeah buts. There's no yeah buts. There's no yeah buts.
Yeah,
There's
well,
no yeah buts.
They're out there, man. They're out there. They're gonna say, well, and forget the young dentist, but let's just talk about this now. As far as what AI has done over the last couple of years, and how, if anything, are you going to do with AI, and how that's going to implement and change, where you are today and where you're going to be in the next 2-3 years?
Well, first of all, we know agentic AI is not just coming, it's here now. And if we take a look at the whole AI picture, we know really everybody's talking about ChatGPT a year ago. And all these companies are investing hundreds of billions of dollars. So it's ChatGPT. Then it becomes Gemini as a new thing. Then it's Claude, and you talk about Perplexity. And all of them have their strengths and weaknesses right now as they continue to build out their platforms. They are not going to be a substitute for care, skill, and knowledge of the actual dentist themselves. What they're going to do is help you implement the strategy and spend your time more wisely. Specifically, if you use Claude as an example. Claude, if you feed it information and basically it's really like an interview. You plug into Claude who you are, what you're doing, what your goals are, and it asks you questions for about a half hour to 45 minutes, has a very clear understanding of what you're going to need. And it can go ahead eventually and do a lot of scripting for you. It can do a lot of tasks and chores, like look at your email. It can look at your day's schedule. There's a lot of things like a built-in personal assistant that is going to be wonderful if you utilize the system and understand that it's constantly evolving. Where we are now is not where it's going to be, so don't get comfortable with it. You have to be okay with the fact it's going to change. And maybe 6 months from now, maybe Perplexity is the place to go instead of Claude. That's the first thing you got to know about AI. AI also is not a substitute for doing a Google search and finding who you are. So here's the thing people have to understand. Everyone's saying, oh, well, you just ask AI where to go. As a dentist, it's going to tell you where to go. Where do you think when you ask Gemini, where do you think Gemini is culling the data from? Gemini is attached to Google, Alphabet. And so as long as you have a very strong GMB and you have a lot of Google reviews and your information is correct on your GMB and you have posting on your site all of your information on your website is correct. You intertwine it and interconnect it with your social media. Yeah, where do you think they're going to find when you go into Gemini? I'd like to find a cosmetic dentist in Jupiter, Florida. Gemini is going to go ahead and call that data from your Google account. And so don't think that Claude is going to supersede or surpass that. It is not. It is not going to do that, at least not now. So you have to continue to build out your base and your framework of this so that all the data is there for when eventually it does come to fruition. It knows that you are the trusted and valued source in your area. You know, it's hyper focused. It's called, it's hyper local. And so all of that is going to be very important moving forward. It's exciting to watch what's going on with AI right now, isn't it? It's a little scary for a lot of us too, who are not utilizing it. And then you realize what it can do for you. And yet it's only the beginning. We have not really even tapped what is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Can I digress about one thing about this as well?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I'm really into the space program, which kind of plays into what I do and, you know, what I did in the practice, and that the space program in NASA always has redundancy. If one engine blows, there's another engine to take over. And so if you take a look at SpaceX, you know, when they launched last week, they have 32 or 33 of the Raptor engines, and one did not ignite on liftoff, but it still went up. But they lost the booster because one of them blew up and it blew out the other 12 or 13. They didn't get to land the booster that they wanted to. But what people have to understand here is the reason why SpaceX is so important with these launches is the vehicle that they're launching, the what's called Starship, is the biggest, you know, rocket ever put into space. And the reason that is important is when they start to build out all of the data centers, the reason they want to put data centers into outer space is it serves two purposes. Number one, data centers, nobody wants them in their town because they take up a lot of space. They burn a lot of energy, and they need a lot of water to keep things cool. When you put the data centers in outer space, it solves two of the biggest problems. It's unlimited free energy from the sun. And because the space is so cold, you don't have to cool it. And once we're able to put those data centers in mass around the planet, everything changes as far as data goes. I'll leave you with one more thing. I heard something on the news the other day on one like CNBC or Fox News Business, and they said in the last 3 years, the data and information generated is more than the data and information generated since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
What does that tell you about our future? We're only scratching the surface. We're at the starting point, not at the end point and not in the middle. So my suggestion for people, especially in dentistry right now, is learn agentic AI. Utilize Claude. If you want to use Gemini, it's great. You want to use ChatGPT, it's great. They're all going to leapfrog each other. Right now, the hot button is Claude. Get into it, play with it. Look, I know guys that are building lectures from it. I don't particularly like that. I like building my own because I kind of think in Keynote. But it's a great adjunct. It's a personal assistant that's only going to get to know you better and do more jobs for you. But the last thing is keep it private. Make the toggle switch private so your information does not go out to everybody else.
From everything I understand, nothing is private anymore. So even if you click that button, you know, it's still gonna be public. I want to touch on a few things that you mentioned. So GMB is Google My Business.
Yes.
And so Google reviews are still very important. I want to add YouTube Shorts are also connected to Google and Google Gemini. So don't forget about your video content. I think that's really important.
Great point.
But you know, we're talking more on the external. I want to get into branding a little bit, but I also want, as far as, you know, what you're suggesting, meaning being the doctor of choice in your area, you got to be on Google still. In essence, it's just going to be in a different format. You don't have to type keywords in Google search. Now you might be in Gemini, for example, but the concept is the same. They're going to extract that information from Google. But I wanted to also ask, what are you going to do with AI internally with your team? There's a lot of talk right now that, well, let me tell you, I mean, I've coached offices that have 43, 44% payroll. And, they're ranging from anything from 28 to 43%. Generally, they're in the mid 30s. Um, are you going to utilize AI in any way, shape, or form to incorporate this potential reduction in overhead in your payroll by bringing in agentic AI, for example?
Well, again, there's a system, and I forgot, it went off right out of my. Again, I have to talk about things for it to pop into my head. There is a program where you can go ahead and enter in your monthly P&Ls, and it will look everything over and look at your payrolls. And then what it'll do is it'll convert it to like a podcast. So you can, while you're driving, you can listen to the data being read back to you while you're driving instead of sitting in front of the computer. It can analyze it for you and then talk to you basically in a way to where it's almost like a practice consultant or an accountant is looking at those numbers specifically. If you say, wow, my payroll is 44%, which is way, I mean, remember when we
Yeah.
started out, it was, you really wanted payroll below 25%. If you were like at 20 or 22, you're thumping your chest thinking you were really managing your office quite well, understanding that we're in a time of hyperinflation for everything, right? I mean, everything costs so much more money than it did. And so, yeah, all of those things are possible. And yes, utilizing the AI to do those sorts of deep dives for you on things that you would normally pay maybe a consultant or accountant to do. Yeah, that's all there for you. And there are so many different programs and add-ons to already what you have, whether you have, most of the internal CMS, CMR is not great, whether it's, Dentrix or Eaglesoft. You have to have like an addendum, something like Weave or Dental Intel or Practice by Numbers for you to really take a look at your numbers and then run a P&L every single month. But again, plugging them into this other program is really next level stuff. And I think that's going to be a great aid to us.
So, if I can add to that for the doctors listening, integration is really important. You got to integrate all your systems. So, you can't have your bookkeeping and your P&L separate from your practice management software, separate from your practice analysis software. You got to make sure they're all talking to each other and communicating because all those numbers matter. There are many times the reconciliation is not the same with what you've collected, for example, and what your bank statement says. These all have to be, reconciled, right? So make sure that integration is really important. That even goes into technology and digital. And we can talk a little bit about that too, as far as making sure all the scanners and x-rays and everything is integrated and speaking to each other. But, we're talking payroll and there's fixed overhead and then there's operational or variable cost. In the operation system or we always talk about systems and operation. To be honest, most doctors are getting a failing or a D grade on how they're managing their operation because they're very inefficient. So is there a couple of pointers? I mean, we're talking about payroll and how potentially AI can help with payroll, but are there a couple other nuggets, Rob, that, top of mind here that says, doctor, if you do this, you'll reduce 3% of that? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, if you listen to practice consultants, practice management consultants, they always want to, it's always the same thing, right? They want you to use a different supplier for your dental materials to lower that. And there's a lot of places online. There's Net32. There's a lot of buying clubs you can be part of. Okay. The other thing is, they look at your lab costs and they go, well, your lab costs are too high. Your labs, remember the old numbers were you wanted to be somewhere between 8 and 12%. And that sounds great for a general practice that does a lot of blended type of dentistry. But when you're in a prost forward practice, let's call it that. I'm not calling myself a prosthodontist at any way, shape, or form. But remember, I didn't do any sort of specialty work whatsoever. None. I didn't extract teeth, no grafting, no implants, no extractions, no endo. So everything was for me was lab costs. So they looked at my lab cost initially and said, "Oh, your lab fee is too high." I go, "Well, that's because I'm not offsetting it with dropping an implant, doing an endo, doing extraction. So my percentage is going to be higher, but my fee for my crown and bridge was significantly higher than most of your clients were." So those are the two things you got to look at. Obviously, payroll. Those are the basics that they would tell you. Or they're saying, well, you need to increase your production to decrease your overall cost, to increase your profitability. All of that sounds great. The question is, how are you going to do that, right? How are you going to do that? And it comes back to, let's circle back to branding. It really starts with branding. Because if you got your brand established and people in your community know what you do, which is different than everybody else, better than everybody else, with a name, with a strong, you want to call it a constitution, a strong framework, you're going to create missionaries, you're going to create ambassadors. What we wanted always is when people were out, they would say, "Hey, who's your dentist?" And they go, "Oh, Ritter Ramsay." They go, I've heard those guys. Or they're great. So it's the only place I'd go. And I'm going to tell you, across the street from the office are six, and it's like a mirror image to our building. There are 6 different dentists in the building, 6 as opposed to our 1. And first of all, I've never met any of them in 22 or 23 years there. Never met one. Not one of them came over to say hello. And one of them, the last person that moved in was probably 7 years ago. And I kept thinking to myself, if I was moving to town, would I want to move in across the street from Ritter and Ramsay? And the answer is no, I wouldn't. Now, when Ramsay comes on in a couple of weeks, he's going to be even more, he's going to be more definitive in some of his statements. And I'm just going to say that, let him say that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good. I don't want to steal his thunder. You're going to enjoy Ramsay and his energy and his passion and message and the way he emotes. My thing has always been, I think if you concentrate on the things that you really are good at, and the things that you're really good at are the things that you really enjoy doing, I think what happens is just by natural, subconscious, what's it called? Unconsciously competent, that's going to be exuding from you to your patients. And they're going to have a trust and a warmth for you that is going to supersede whatever marketing budget that you've got. They're going to go out there and tell everybody, wow, that was the best experience I've ever had in dental practice. First of all, I didn't even feel him giving me the injection. I can't even believe Ritter. When he gives an injection, I don't even know that he's giving me the injection. Everything always looks great. Everything feels great. They're always so nice there when I walk in. They recognize me by my name. They always seat me on time. I mean, all of these things build on each other to make it that it's the best experience, because it's all about experiences right now. Everything costs a lot of money right now, right? Everything. I heard a family of 4 that went to Disney World for the day. 4 tickets, parking, food, snacks, bottles of water. The whole thing was $1,500. And the people were upset because, you know why? Because the experience was not great for them. Whereas if the experience is great, think about this. When you go on a great vacation, and I'm talking about a really well-planned, well-executed vacation when you completely disconnect, you go to a place you've always wanted to go to, whether it be an adventure or a true vacation, you come home and a year later, you don't remember how much it cost. You only remember how great it was. Remember the service of that restaurant? Remember when we walked in the hotel, what they had drinks waiting for us? Do you remember the concierge who set us up on that excursion? You never remember. I couldn't tell you how much any of my vacations cost. I just remember, wow, that restaurant, that it was all about the experience. That's what we're doing in dentistry now. That's what's going to set your practice apart from everybody else. The experience when the patient, from the moment they call you on the phone, to the moment they're greeted at the door, to the moment they're seated, the moment they meet you, the human interaction, the connection, that's what's going to make you different and better than everybody else in your town.
There's so much in there. Let me just try to kind of dissect it a little bit for conversation here. I've been on social talking about clinical excellence and this idea of being jack of all trades in dentistry. You will not get to clinical excellence. You'll get to clinical average. And this is what you're saying. You're basically saying, look, pick what you enjoy and take a deep dive. And the idea of, just think about it. Do an all on X, then go do a root canal, then go, do a crown, then go do 3 fillings. I mean, that you just can't be excellent at it. And I've brought in a few board certified oral surgeons and endodontists that have talked about, endo lesions and periimplantitis. And a lot of what they're telling me is poor execution by the general dentist, because at the end of the day, they're more worried about production numbers than they are providing excellent clinical care. I mean, that's the answer. Now, some might realize it, some might be in denial, and some might know exactly what I'm saying right now. I'm going to change their game. That's a decision that every individual dentist has to make, but it has to be one of those 3. You either know what you're doing and you're still going to do it average, or you don't know what you're doing, and because you're young, you haven't practiced enough. I get that too. But so I think striving for clinical excellence is an internal mindset game that that you just have to have. And I can tell you, 2000. So I got licensed in 2001. 2012, I walked away from implants and endo because I said, you know what? I'm not gonna. First of all, I didn't really enjoy it, to be honest. That was just me, and because I was jack of all trades my first 10, 11 years, and I didn't enjoy it. So if I'm not enjoying it, why do it? And so then I took a deeper dive. And so that's really important to understand. The second thing, I think we were talking about the branding component. Look, I've had Paul Vigario on here talking about the difference between branding and marketing. And there is a difference. Understand the difference. There is a difference. And look, most doctors, let's just call it what it is. Most doctors, I've said this too. 90% of their success is based on luck, because as long as there's a butt in the chair, they're doing dentistry, they're going to have success by definition, by default, because you're just going to outproduce your problems. So there's that component of it as well that I think is really important to understand, the branding component. So there's conversations on case conversions. If you're branded, the moment you're chairside next to the patient, your case conversions by default are going to be much higher than if you're not branded and you're marketing and you got a price shopper in the chair. You have to understand that distinction. And I think that's what you're really getting at here, Rob, is to say, when the patient is next to me in the chair, they want to be there. They want my service, and they're happy that I'm talking to them. That in itself is a huge difference in your converting cases.
You said something I want to springboard off of. So the practice has the highest restorative fees in the area. Ritter Ramsay has the highest restorative fees in the area. And they're like, well, that's awesome. I'm just going to go back and I'm going to increase my fees. No. First of all, that didn't happen overnight. You have to be clinically excellent to be able to provide the services that will eventually lead itself to having these beautiful cases that people don't mind spending the money for. When you have branding, which is far and wide and deep, that's different than marketing, which is like a one-off. It's not even close to being the same thing. So I agree with Paul. And I do a whole section in my presentation on branding versus marketing, because you're right, there's a huge difference. When patients come to see us, they already know that they're coming to the best office. They already know pretty much that the fee is going to be the highest. They already saw our cases both on social media and on the website, so they know what they're getting before they even come. And we're going to do something that you hit on that is absolutely not talked about in any of the teaching facilities whatsoever. None. And this is why we came up with the protocol. Nobody understands the art of the consult. No one. And whether you, and again, Pankey, Spear, Dawson, Coyce, they don't talk about it. And that's fine. We do in the course, because you have this wonderful knowledge that you get from going through the course curriculum. It was life-changing for me, and just an incredible set of skills that John gave me. Same with Frank at Frank Spear. And early in my career, 30 years ago, I went through the Dawson Academy. But they didn't tell me how to do a consult. I didn't understand human interaction. I didn't understand the way to speak to a patient. They give you great ways to gather information and to diagnose cases, but they don't tell you what the patient wants to, how the patient is going to understand that, how they're going to accept that, and how they're going to go ahead and take that information, synthesize it, and say, yes, I do want this, or I do need this for myself. They don't go over that. There was it was a huge piece of the puzzle that was missing. And this is why a lot of people, after they go through these programs, you ask them after the fact, how many cases are you doing now? Not many. Not many. They don't have the skill set to go back and present that information. So in our 2-day course, we go over it's the chairside consult, the art of the digital consult, and we spend time, and Ramsay's going to spend more time with you on this than I will right now. I don't want to steal his thunder, where we use both a blended amount of digital technology. It all starts with a digital scanner so the patient can see what's going on. My whole gimmick is that my assistant scans the patient, and before I walk in the room, all the data is there. So when I sit down, need any eye-to-eye, heart-to-heart to understand what the patient is looking for, that I'm turning around and talking to them and then manipulating the screen on the intraoral scanner, almost like Tom Cruise in Minority Report. And I casually turn over my shoulder and I go, well, of course, your last dentist showed you this, knowing that they didn't.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, my dentist doesn't have this. And I turn around and I go with the hyper exaggerated response. What? They don't have this? Are you kidding? I've been using this for 15 years. I don't even understand how you could potentially even practice today without having a chairside scanner. And we've got 7 of them in the practice. So, wow, I don't understand how a practice today doesn't practice with that. Every practice should have a digital scanner in it. I mean, it's the best thing for patient communication tools. And so when the patient sees that and they hear you explaining something to them and taking the time to do it, that is what patients are thirsty for. They are now used to going to physicians who spend 2 minutes with them and don't listen to them. And I'm not saying that you need to spend an hour with everybody, because a lot of it sometimes is a lot of superfluous. I had a bad experience with my last dentist. I don't need to hear that. I just know that you're going to have a great experience here. And that's what I would always tell patients when they come to the practice. You're always going to have a great experience here. And at the end of it was always, for me, well, nobody's ever explained that to me like that before. I said, no, I'm sure they haven't. I'm sure they have not. Because first of all, they weren't sitting there and doing the hardest thing for a dentist to do, which is shut up, don't overtalk the patient, let them talk, make sure they have qualifying statements, ask permission to go ahead and explain things in a different way. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a connection with the patient that will allow them to trust and value you as a healthcare member that they don't get in any other office. That's what it comes down to.
The value proposition is shut up many times, right? I mean, just shut up and let their oral cavity speak by just showing them what's going on. I mean, it's really just that simple. We get so clinical and we think that's going to make a difference. Like they understand the difference between Nobel and Straumann or Emax and feldspathic and Iteros against another scanner. I mean,
Trios.
Trios.
Yeah.
So,
I had a patient experience about 5 years ago. He found me the way you want to be found. He did a search on Google. He looked at the cases on our website. He went to social media. He liked some of the dentistry we're doing. He came in for a consult. And I asked him how he found us, and exactly that's how he found us. And his situation was that he had 4 veneers on his front teeth. And he was overclosed, and he had worn the daylights out of his lower anterior teeth. And he goes, I've had these done 3 times. I've had them done 3 times, and they keep popping off. And every time I go to that dentist, he says, oh, well, your bite is not set up for this. I'll put it back on, but it's really not going to last. And then the one time they break, he goes, well, I'll replace it for you, but it's really not going to last. And the patient keeps telling him, I really want to fix this so it doesn't happen. But the dentist, for either one of 2 reasons, either he didn't want to hear it, And more likely, he didn't understand how to fix the problem, right? So he kept coming up with excuses. And I told him, I'm going to give you the solution to your problem. It's very different than what your last dentist did. Let me show you something that looks quite similar to your case. And then if it's okay with you, I'll show you the process of which we can accomplish this for you. So if he agrees, we go through the whole treatment, we seat the case. I did a whole arch of dentistry. I had to open his bite. He was over collapsed. There was no room. Everything that you would learn in going through a spear coist continuum. He comes back to get his teeth cleaned 6 months later. And he goes, "Doctor, I got to tell you something." He says, "I've been dealing with this problem for 20 years, driving me crazy. I had to be careful what I chewed. I never got a result." He goes, "This is the first time in my life in 20 years. I am so confident I can bite into a steak, bite into a piece of pizza. I know they're not popping out. And all of a sudden, I noticed I'm smiling more. In other words, I'm not just smiling more, I'm showing more tooth. And I'll tell you the real reason why that's important to me. Because before, when I only had my front 4 teeth, it looked like something was not right. Now, when I smile, I'm showing all of my teeth in a way I've never showed them before. And nobody ever explained that to me the way that you did on the front end. Remember, everything on the front end is an explanation. Everything that happens after the fact is an excuse. And I don't like to have those conversations. I never had those conversations with patients. I told them everything up front. Now, whether they decided to do it or not, that's on them. There was never a heavy sales push when I was doing this. Never. Because when it seems like you need to do the work, people pick up on that. Their little spidey sense goes off. And they're like, "This guy wants to do this too much." My default was always, "This is what I can do. I'm a referee. I call it as I see it. You want to do it? I'm here for you. You don't want to do it? Great. You want to go to somebody else? Careful. Be careful, because they're not going to do what I'm going to do for you, and you're going to wind up losing your money." And then my last line for the night would be this. If they go, "Well, I only wanted," let's say he said to me, "I only want to do 16." I would say to him, "It's not the right thing to do. You're going to wind up back in the same situation. Just because you don't want to do the right thing doesn't mean I'm going to do the wrong thing." And that's all you got to say. I'm treating you like I would treat you, my brother, my father, my mother, my child. No difference.
Well, let's I enjoy listening to this because it gives me punchlines. But here's the reality. If you're a mechanical dentist, you're always going to have your cases at some level just not be right. Something is failing or something is breaking or something just isn't right, and you don't really have the answer. And you don't know what the answer is. So to your point, to the patient that comes in and that veneer keeps popping off, they think it's failed and you're giving them an excuse. And they paid money to listen to your excuse is not a win for your business long term.
No.
So here's the lesson here. If you're having trouble with your cases, whether it's 4 units, 8 units, your porcelain on the second molars are cracking or breaking all the time, and you don't know why that's happening, you need to understand and learn occlusion. You need to learn occlusion. You need to understand the flexibility of what it's going to take for you to open the vertical and let the tongue and the teeth breathe. Because as Rob is saying here, if there's an entrapment of the lower mandible and you don't know how to open the vertical, you're always going to have that failed case. You're always going to have, who doesn't have wear on their lower anteriors, right? The other thing that you can also do if you have that knowledge is you prep the patient on expectation before you start. So you're saying now to the patient, "Listen, I'm happy to do 4, 6, or 8 units for you, but the aggressiveness that you have right now in your teeth, I'm not so, I can't give you excellent prognosis. I can give you good to fair prognosis. If you're cool with that, I'm cool with it. But I just want you to understand this is not the best platform to build this smile makeover on." Well, guess what? If you prep the patient on expectations, then they can come back to you and say, "You know what, doc, you told me that and I still went with it." As opposed to you never saying that because you want to get that 8-unit production. And then on the back end, now it sounds like excuses.
I'm going to go one level above that. And then you eventually get to the point, or the patient wants to do it and you know it's not going to work and you're like, I'm not doing it at all.
Yeah.
You don't even give into that. You don't even give into it. And you're like, that's not the right thing to do. It's not going to work. I don't want, you ever hear the line, it's better to see the back of their head once than the front of their head 50 times? So if you know it's not the right thing to do, don't do it. Don't do it. I understand people are under a lot of financial pressure these days, and I get it. And I'm not even talking about the people that work under different circumstances. Maybe it's a DSO or it's production based. I understand that. But sometimes the best dentistry is no dentistry. And I will tell you, that the people who come through our course, this is one of the biggest things that we teach them is when to open a bite. It's not very well taught in other places. It's not well taught in dental school. They don't have time to do it. I'm not blaming the dental school for it. But after you've been out for a couple of years and you see the tremendous wear that's happening on teeth, you've got to find a simple solution of how to open their bite and how to do it reproducibly and do it so confidently that you don't have to worry about it, right? And so that's kind of what we teach in our 2-day course. I know I'd like to just promote the course just for a moment. There are a lot of courses out there. I know you just had the stylist on talking about no prep veneers, and I'm sure you've had other people talk about their courses. Diana Tadros teaches ExoCAD, and there's just a lot of different things out there. Our 2-day course, The Protocol, goes over patient attraction, how to get the right patients into your office, talks about human understanding and persuasion, what Ramsay talks a lot about, digital technology, most importantly, recognizing when the vertical needs to be open, you're opening the vertical dimension of occlusion, how to do it predictably and comfortably with a hands-off approach, how to go ahead and use PMMAs, which are one of the greatest gifts we have in dentistry today, letting your laboratory design your cases and then milling them out of PMMA where the patient gets used to their new bite while they're getting used to the new phonetics and function and color and shape of their teeth. There's nothing like our course out there. We built it because it didn't exist in dentistry. And everybody that leaves says that's the best 2 days I've ever had in CE. I wish everybody else knew about this course. So I always tell people, I don't really have a marketing budget. If you've had a great time here, please tell your friends, tell your colleagues, tell your associates, tell your business partners about it. I don't have a marketing budget. We just do this because we enjoy it. We do it 4 times a year. We've got a course coming up in August. We just had a sold out course 2 weeks ago. We do it 4 times a year. In August, it'll happen again in November, and they'll recycle again into 2027. We've had a lot of people come through the course in the last 6 years, and a lot of them text me. We're on a WhatsApp group. We share information. The people on WhatsApp are like, I just basically, there's a patient that came in and just decided to do 2 arches of dentistry. I couldn't have done this without your help. It's very fulfilling for me, very fulfilling what this course has brought to the table. And I love helping dentists because it can be a struggle. And I want to see them enjoy the profession because it's a great profession.
Yeah. I want to touch on something that you said here. No dentistry is the best type of dentistry. Let me add a couple of points to that I think is really important. If you're a young doctor, understand your liquid cash, because a lot of doctors diagnose and treatment plan and take care of patients because they're strapped with cash. If you're doing that, you're going to find yourself getting into these situations where you're just throwing a lot of excuses at patients because you're doing things that at times you know deep inside that either you don't have the skill to do it or you're not sure of the end result. So you can't really, you don't see the end, you don't see the end point before you start, right? So understand your liquid cash. And the other thing is this idea of being over leveraged, know your fixed expenses. If you get too big too quickly and you don't fill the chairs and you're not liquid enough to be able to fill the chairs in whatever strategy you use, whether it's branding, whether it's marketing, whatever that is, and that's a whole discussion in itself, you will also find yourself doing treatment on patients that are going to have problems moving forward. So this is really important. Diagnose with a calm, relaxed mind, and money in the bank is different than when you're nervous, you have to make payroll, you don't have money in the bank, and your wife or husband is yelling at you at home.
When Frank Spear, he used to teach a course called The Practice of Excellence. And he said, when you eventually get to the point in your career where you have the money in your account and you don't need it, you're practicing for the joy of dentistry because it's the best time to be a
Yeah.
dentist. Yeah, which I totally agree with Frank about. So, listen, it's been great, chatting with you. And if people want more information, they can go to www.theprotocollive.com and check it out, or follow us on Instagram.
Well, let me
You
do
know,
this. Tori, show asset number 2, please.
I'm not saying this because I'm on a testimonial right now, but this is hands down the best course I've ever been to. For me, it's right place, right time. But really for anybody, it is a course that's not about clinical. It's not about just business. It encompasses everything in a succinct manner, but also at the same time very in depth. So I would highly recommend this to anybody, and just know that it will change your practice in your life. I say that because a lot of the things that they taught us and reviewed make what we do from a clinical perspective, from an administrative perspective, from a personnel management perspective, very straightforward and easy to put into practice right away. I would say if you're on the fence about taking this course, I can tell you right now that I've been to a lot of clinical, administrative, business, the whole gamut of running your practice and practicing dentistry. And this course will give you an ROI like no other. So you take this course and you will not regret it. My name's Aaron Springhetti. I'm from Carmel, Indiana. I'm a cosmetic and general dentist.
So I
couldn't agree with him more.
Well,
I don't have to say anything. I want to say anything.
Well,
he did it better than I ever could.
I was scrolling through, by the way, follow him on Instagram, The Protocol Live, Rob Ritter and Ramsay. But I was scrolling, and I was watching all these testimonials from doctors from all around the country. And I just love this song. And I'm like, all right, I'm going with the song, and his content is amazing. And I couldn't pick. Everybody was just like so excited about being there and having that positive experience. And they were very genuine in what they were saying. So I was like, all right, what's the tiebreaker? Pick the song. So that's how I chose it. But
that's great. Yeah.
So if we can, and maybe, we've already touched on so many topics that I'm sure you cover in that, in your 2-day curriculum. One of the things, I think it was Chris that said it, and he said, look, go take Hoist, go take Spears, go take Dawson and Pankey. We're not trying to really compete with those programs. We're an add-on.
We're an add-on or an add-on adjunct to it. That's correct. And we're not a replacement.
Yeah. So, and that's such a great way to put that, because it takes away this, should I take this? Should I take that? And this is just a 2-day powerhouse of content. So day 1, what should they expect? And then day 2, what should they expect, Rob?
Well, day 1 is all about interaction, if I could call it that. It's all about mindset shift. It's all about direction and purpose. It's understanding humans. It's understanding where you want to go with your practice. Day 2 is more of the what some people would call the minutia of dentistry. The physical capabilities of scanners, of cements, adhesives, ceramics, occlusion, that sorts of thing that we go through. The shade try-in stage that nobody else shows, doing a temp swap out to PMMAs. So it's really it's a cohesive and an all-encompassing 2 days. And I got to tell you, when we constructed this course, I said to Ramsay, when we do this, I want to treat people the way I would want to be treated when I go to a CE course. So we're going to feed them gourmet breakfasts, gourmet lunches that we normally eat, go to a place that we go to eat dinner. We're going to take care of them to where everything is taken care of. We're going to give them the cookbook of all the lectures on a manual. And then on top of it, we're going to give away $1,600 worth of dental products that the companies have graciously donated for us. It's all the same materials that is used in the practice. So when you see it up on the screen, you leave with those materials so you could use it back in your practice. So you go back to your practice on Monday, you start implementing everything that we talk about, and it's just like what Aaron said. It's exactly what I said. I'm not going to repeat what he said because he said it better than I could. It's really a phenomenal 2 days, of which If you haven't started Coister Spear, this will get you started. If you're in the middle of it and some of the things don't come together for you and you're having trouble connecting it, this will help you. At the end, it's a nice bow tie to wrap everything up to help you implement the strategies and all the foundational information that they cover that we cannot cover in 2 days. That's the thing. I can't cover in 2 days what they cover in a 9-course curriculum. We're not about to do that, but we are here, there to help people. And so it's been a great 6 years, and we're hoping for another 5-6 years out of it as well. And perpetuity, as long as we can go, as long as we can help people. And thank you for having me on tonight as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I sincerely appreciate you being here. I genuinely do. So thank you for that. But, you know, the other thing I noticed in the testimonials, there were new graduates, there were mid-seasoned, and there are these guys that were, it seemed like they were in their 60s and maybe, you know, early, late 60s with white hair in your course, which I thought was really showed the range of, you know, what this course can really be all about. It's not for the young dentist. It's not for the seasoned dentist that knows everything already. It's for everybody. Yeah.
For everybody.
And
it's for everybody.
I think that was really telling by looking at that. You mentioned the course, next course is in August. You have a course in November. So, I mean, it begs the question, like you've done this now for 6 years. It is a 2-day protocol. Are you going to expand into more, you know, more courses and more topics? And what does that look like for you and Chris?
Well, we've been asked all the time, and this is a subject. Don't ask Ramsay about this, okay? Because then he's gonna
wait. Let me write this down.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Ramsay's gonna go like this, which is his tell, and he's gonna get all. We've been asked many, many times to do a team program, okay? And we have thrown around the topic quite a bit, and I'm not going to say it's off the table. I'm going to say it's being discussed, that we could potentially do something else, but I want to be clear with people about something. And I tell people this all the time. I have no intention right now, and neither does Ramsay, of building a teaching facility and building out 8 courses. That's not where my headspace is. It's not where I want to put my energy right now. We have a course that does really great for dentists. And yes, we do realize that there's something lacking for the team members, and I'd like to do something for them. And so that is being bandied about or talked about, ideas thrown around. And I'd like to do something next year in 27. I really would. So stay tuned is what I would say. Yeah. Stay tuned. Yeah.
What scanner do you use? Trios?
Oh no, I've had Trios machines. We've got Iteros.
What's your favorite? Is there one?
No. Here's the thing about scanners. Scanners are like where you ask, you like a BMW or Mercedes. It's like asking, where does your child go to high school? Whatever scanner, most people have one scanner. So if you ask them what's the best scanner, they're going to tell you the scanner that they bought. It's like sending where your kid to high school. You would never say, well, the best high school is school X, but your child goes to S. And you'd say, well, why don't you send them there? If the best school is X, why are you sending them to S? That's why we have so many scanners in the practice. The practice has, 5 different scanners, because not every scanner has everything that you're looking for. People come up to me after a lecture and they go, what scanner should I have? And I go, well, let's dissect this. What kind of practice do you have? What dentistry are you doing? What are you looking to accomplish? And what are your goals? And then from there, we can pick the scanner that matches what your practice profile is. They're all great right now. They're all great. It's a Mercedes, it's a BMW. Which one do you want? How many bells and whistles do you want? What do you want to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You're right. I mean, most practices have one scanner, and that's what they fall in love with and not really understand what else is out in the market. So that's a fair point. It depends on your type of practice. Tori, show asset number 1, please.
Ask me, what happens after you leave the protocol? After you've been here for 2 days and absorbed all that information and you're jacked up and you're fired up to go back to your office and implement a lot of the strategies that we cover, the learning never stops. We have a WhatsApp group where we built a community over the last 5, almost 6 years now of the protocol, where you can go ahead and share your information, where you can ask questions, where you can exchange ideas with other people, like-minded people who have come through the protocol. We know that you've taken other CE before. We like to think that we put it all together, and there's nothing better than a small shared group community that you can go ahead and just ask the questions that you might not be able to ask at other times during your practice days. So I really think that coming to the protocol is really just the starting point, not the ending point, to continuing your CE journey in a great career.
Yeah, so this
Here we
also
go.
this
There we
this
go.
also caught my eye because a lot of programs after you're done, and you go back to your office and you have questions and you don't have any support. You feel like you're all on your own, and then by Wednesday of the following week or Thursday, you kind of go back to doing your old stuff because you didn't really have any guidance or direction. And I thought that was really powerful to have a follow-up type group that allows you to say, hey, I just took the protocol, I'm stuck on this idea, what do I need to do? Are you and Chris active in that group? And
Yes, we are.
okay.
Yeah, we are. Whenever somebody gets on there and asks questions, we're on there every single day, and I'm trying to answer as many questions as I possibly can. But quite honestly, sometimes the other attendees, they jump on there too, and they're like, well, try this, or I've done this, or contact this person to help you out, use this laboratory. And it's a community. That's what a community is built on, right? That's what it's there for. So we started it a couple of years ago, probably 4 years ago. It's continuing to grow. It's only for people who have come to the protocol, though.
Yep.
This way, because this way you're all speaking the same language, so to speak. You know, you make a very good point. You know, Kois, he doesn't have a symposium anymore. He doesn't have in the summertime. So my thing has always been, where are you supposed to go now? Well, I could tell you, I really think you should come to the protocol. I really do. And jump onto this forum. And I think you can continue your journey and your education and take it to a place where you probably never thought it was even possible. So it's been great for us. We enjoy doing it. Hopefully, we can expand it a little bit for teams in the not too distant future, and just kind of continue to build it out to where it's very, very effective for dentists and their offices.
Dr. Rob Ritter, thank you so much, man, for doing this. I appreciate it.
With you. My pleasure. And thanks for having me, really.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. The protocol live, August is the next course. You can find him on all the social channels. I love watching his Instagram pages. Rob, thank you so much. Have a great night.
My pleasure. Thanks again.
Yeah. Wow, that was cool. But one thing is really clear with leaders. I have to say this: they know what they want and they go after it. They hold themselves to a higher standard. They hold themselves to being accountable. They have confidence. They push through the hard times. They're intentional with their decisions. They're not just throwing darts at the wall and in 3 months everything changes, and they execute. Yeah, pretty cool to have Rob here. And you know what? Next week, we keep going, man. We talked about occlusion tonight, and we are going to talk to hear me out. We talked about Kois, and we talked about Spears, and we talked about Dawson. We talked about Panky. You guys are all CR. I know you. You're all CR. Get that joint up and back, and it's all joint-based, right? Wrong. Neuromuscular dentistry. We have Dr. Jeff Hadat here that's going to tell all you mainstreamers, what if you don't have the condyle? Where do the teeth go? What happens if there's a condylectomy? We're going to talk to him next week. I'm excited. He teaches, he's a KOL for myotronics, and hey, you know what? If you know me, you know I've gone through the LVI curriculum, and that's what they were big on, neuromuscular dentistry. But why hasn't it caught on? I mean, it's not mainstream, let's face it. People would rather go to Kois than LVI. Why? Why is neuromuscular not taken off like we thought it would in the early 2000s? Anyways, until next time, follow me at Dr. Shaheen Safarian. I'm pumped. This music makes me pumped. And, I have to throw a shout out to Ivan my graphic designer since 2014. You guys have to understand, I can't do everything by myself. I'm not alone in making this a success. Ivan, shout out to you. And assets are produced by him. And Tori, as you know, if you follow me on this live show, he's behind the scenes every live show. Gentlemen, I